Welcome to the beautiful town of Bamberg, UNESCO World Heritage since 1993. My name is Ralph Kloos. I was born and raised in the city of Bamberg, and my whole life has changed when I found this original copper engravement, and I would say not only my life. The consequences from this discovery were that we have wrote a book about the factory of death. We made two big keynotes for the DEUTSCHE Stiftung Denkmalsschutz. The city of Bamberg made an official Witch Week in the year 2012, and since the year 2015, a witch monument is situated where once were the biggest witch burnings in the city. The city of Bamberg invites all the artists who like to participate for the Witch Year in 2028. I made my high school degree. It's about very few meters away from the LANGE Street, and as we have heard in our school, there was only one witch burned in the city of Bamberg. Likewise, it was with a mentioning of Adolf Hitler, because when we asked, they told us that Adolf Hitler only has been to the city once. He passed by with a train from Florence to Berlin. Error number one was erased when I found this mentioned copper engravement in the year 2005. And all you need to know about the life and the movements of Adolf Hitler you find in this book, which was first published in the year 2017. That means that Adolf Hitler first held his official speech for the Day of the Germans on October 7th, 1923, and he always had an overnight stay in the Hotel Eckenbüttner. 5 weeks later, Adolf Hitler was arrested and was imprisoned in the fortress in Landsberg am Lech. His earlier release on parole was in December 1924. Round about 7 months later, he was once again in Bamberg having a nice dinner with the owner of the Bechstein piano factory and Winifred Wagner, who came from the Wagner Hill in Bayreuth. Only 9 days later, he had another speech to the party members in the large central hall in Bamberg, and he was once again having an overnight stay, this time directly in the LANGE STRASSE in the hotel for the Three Crowns. Still in the same year, on Saturday, December 19th, 1925, the NSDAP party was holding their annually Christmas party, and Adolf Hitler was speaking. His most important speech in the year 1926, Hitler held at the Führerkonferenz in Bamberg on February 14th in the Störenkeller. He was talking 3.5 hours to the NSDAP leaders. Of course, they have been drinking some beers afterwards, and Adolf Hitler stayed another night in another hotel. It was a Hotel Weyrich down the hill in the Luchbank. In the following years, this hotel became a very recommended place because of these Parteikaders like Adolf Hitler and Goebbels who were sleeping in this place. His last official speech, Adolf Hitler was holding on Sunday, 19th of April, 1928, in front of 1,400 participants. Altogether, Adolf Hitler passed in the range of 10 years round about 30 times Bamberg. Most of the times he was coming from another big city, and due to the lack of any autobahns, the convoy of Adolf Hitler always had to pass through the inner city of Bamberg, and therefore he was also passing the Lange Strasse. And from 1993 on, he might have liked this drive-through a lot better, because then the Lange Strasse was renamed, was called Adolf Hitler Straße, and he himself has drove the street 3 times. But it didn't look like our days. That was an image from the year 1937 onwards, because the invention of the colored film was in 1937. Round about 300 years earlier, in 1627, Bamberg changed completely because these two Catholic rulers converted the city of Bamberg to an unprecedented shrine of horror. For a better understanding, in those days, Bamberg already has been a famous place for witch hunting, because under the reign of Neidhard von Thüngen and Johann Gottfried of Aschhausen, there were two big waves of witch persecution, more than 300 victims, and the Alte Hofhaltung served as torture chamber, dungeon, centennial court, and also as a place of execution. But the newly planned torture prison was something completely different. It was erased in the year 1627 and was in service until 1632. More than 600 victims were bestially tortured in this new building. It served as torture chamber, dungeon, centennial court, place of execution, and as a church. It must be clear that Bamberg in those days had 2 torture chambers. It had 3 especially made courtrooms for the witch trials, and all the infrastructure was more or less there for follow the persecution of round about 3,000 witches, which was the plan of the Fuchs of Dornheim. In no other city in the world they have burned the entire political elite as sorcerers. These are the names of the city councillors of Bamberg. Marked in color are the names of those councillors who also were mayors of Bamberg. 2 of them escaped, and the Black Cross is that place that we nowadays call Schönleinsplatz in the center of Bamberg, and also hosts now the Witch Monument since the year 2015. It was a man called Hans Paschke who in the 50s of this century was studying and publishing a lot of different stories about Bamberg. He was also councillor, mayor and publisher, and his studies about Bamberg show the long street. In those houses were the places where the witches lived. Basically, the Lange Straße, the long street, is not really very long because with 260 meters it's more or less a smaller street. It contains 44 buildings, 16 of them are witch houses with 14 owners, and all the following data now is provided by the doctoral thesis of Dr. Britta Game, which is the best scientific book about the witch burnings in Bamberg. As you can see here, these are the names for the first time of the inhabitants of the street, and these 11 are incomplete file situations, so we don't say that they got murdered. Also, it's very, very much likely, because if you once got in the middle of the witch burners, then it was more or less impossible to flee or to come away. For this 21 people, we have written proof that they all made their testament and they all have been burned, living in the street. And I don't think that there is any other street in the world where we have so many witch victims, where more or less a third of the people have died. And here you see the same situation, but this time incorporated on the historical map from the year 1602. Here you see the complete situation, where you can also see the place for the Malefiz house, which has been not 200 meters away from the Lange Straße. There is nowadays the Witch Monument and the Black Cross, the place where the people have extensively burned, more than 600, is also only about 300 meters away. As a better example, we show a single house here, number 32. It was a mansion of the escaped Heinrich Flock, and his both wives have been burned, and the first one in May 1968 and the second one 2 years later. He only survived by fleeing the country to Nuremberg, which at those days was under Protestant rules. This is the upper part of the Lange Straße, and nowadays these houses are called first the Wallensteins Passage. This is the Café Graupner, the other one is the Café Beckstein, and in this view only you have around about 11 killed witches. There was also some resistance of the refugees, and with them together the so-called Nuremberg Friendship. Here you see a map of the Bisdom of Bamberg, with Bamberg and his Malefiz You have to understand that in Kronach, Hallstatt and Zeil there were smaller brothers of the Bamberg Malefiz, and in Zeil also there was the witch oven, the first of its kind in the world. The artists of the world are invited to present their works against the worldwide witch hunt. It wouldn't have been possible to make this film without these two books, and we like to thank the authors. It took us about 12 years time to make our own book about the Bamberg witch hunts, and you can get it only on ebook, works on all tablets and phones. It's also available in German and in Spanish, and it's more or less the standard book for the understanding of whatever happened in the UNESCO World Heritage of Bamberg in the times of the 17th century. We hope you have enjoyed this film, and we only can wish you a great stay if you ever come to Bamberg, because this city shows on the one side the beautiful World Heritage and on the other side the cruelty of a witch persecution which was unprecedented in whole Europe. Thank you for your interest and your time.